The year was 1964, and the Cold War had tightened its grip on the world. In the shadows, a covert war raged, a battle fought not with armies, but with whispers, secrets, and betrayals. Spies were the unseen soldiers of this conflict, navigating a world where trust was a weapon and loyalty could be bought or lost in the blink of an eye. In the heart of East Berlin, a city sliced in two by the grim visage of the Berlin Wall, lived Anya Kessler, an interpreter working for the Soviet embassy. Her days were spent translating official documents and attending diplomatic meetings, her role seemingly mundane. But Anya harbored a secret, a dangerous one. By night, she was Swan, a highly skilled operative for the CIA. Anya had been recruited during her university years in Leningrad, where her fluency in German, English, and Russian had caught the attention of American intelligence. Her handler, Agent Michael Grant, had cultivated her talents, promising her a chance to fight for a freer world. Anya's reasons for joining the CIA were deeply personal. Her father, a dissident writer, had been executed by the Soviet regime, and her mother sent to a gulag. The fire of vengeance burned within her, and she had resolved to dismantle the system that had torn her family apart. One chilly autumn evening, Anya received a coded message through a dead drop near Alexanderplatz. The note, hidden inside a hollowed-out brick, contained a simple yet ominous instruction: Operation Ashfall is active. Rendezvous at Site 3. Her heart raced as she deciphered the message. Site 3 was a small, run-down bookshop near the Brandenburg Gate, a known safe house for operatives. Disguising herself in a plain overcoat and a scarf that concealed her striking auburn hair, Anya made her way to the bookshop under the cover of darkness. The streets were eerily quiet, save for the distant hum of a patrolling military vehicle. As she entered the shop, the musty scent of old paper greeted her. Behind the counter stood Klaus, an elderly man who appeared to be nothing more than a harmless bookseller. But Klaus was an invaluable ally, an informant who had spent decades building a web of contacts in the East German underground. Klaus handed her a tattered copy of Goethe's Faust, slipping a microfilm into the book's hollowed-out spine. "You have 3 days," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "They're on to us." Anya nodded, her expression stoic despite the fear gnawing at her insides. The microfilm contained blueprints for a new Soviet missile system, information that could shift the balance of power in the Cold War. Her mission was to smuggle it across the heavily guarded border into West Berlin. The next 72 hours were a blur of tension and subterfuge. Anya's every move was shadowed by danger. The Stasi, East Germany's secret police, had intensified their surveillance, and rumors of a mole within the CIA's Berlin network only heightened the stakes. Anya relied on her wits and training, using coded messages and covert signals to evade detection. Her journey to the border culminated in a nerve-wracking encounter at Checkpoint Charlie. Disguised as a Red Cross nurse transporting medical supplies, she approached the checkpoint with a calm exterior that belied her pounding heart. As a guard scrutinized her papers, a bead of sweat trickled down her spine. For a moment, she feared the microfilm's presence might somehow be detected, but the guard waved her through, and she crossed into West Berlin, her mission a success. In a safe house on the western side of the city, Anya handed the microfilm to Michael Grant. His face betrayed no emotion as he pocketed the precious intelligence, but his terse nod spoke volumes. Anya's relief was fleeting. She knew the game was far from over. Operation Ashfall was only the beginning. As weeks turned into months, Anya's double life grew increasingly perilous. The Stasi intensified their efforts to root out Western spies, and suspicion began to swirl around the Soviet embassy. Anya's cover was threatened when a colleague, Sergei Ivanov, took a keen interest in her activities. Sergei was a loyalist, a man whose dedication to the Soviet cause bordered on zealotry. His probing questions and lingering glances set Anya's nerves on edge. One evening, Anya's worst fears were realized. Returning to her apartment, she found Sergei waiting for her, a loaded pistol resting casually in his lap. "You've been careless, Swan," he said, his voice dripping with menace. "Did you think we wouldn't notice?" Anya's mind raced as she calculated her options. Denial was futile. Sergei had evidence. Her only chance was to eliminate the threat. Feigning submission, she stepped closer, her hands raised in surrender. As Sergei's attention wavered, she struck, disarming him with a swift, practiced move. The struggle was brief but brutal, ending with Sergei unconscious on the floor. Knowing her position was compromised, Anya fled into the night. With the help of Klaus and the underground network, she disappeared from East Berlin, leaving behind her life as an interpreter and her carefully constructed identity. The CIA extracted her to a safe house in Paris, where she was debriefed and reassigned. Anya's exploits in Berlin became the stuff of legend within the intelligence community. Her courage and resourcefulness had not only secured vital intelligence but also exposed a network of Soviet operatives, dealing a significant blow to the enemy. Yet, the cost of her actions weighed heavily on her. The life of a spy was one of isolation and sacrifice, where victories were often overshadowed by the toll they exacted. As the Cold War raged on, Anya continued to serve, her resolve unshaken. Her codename, Swan, became synonymous with ingenuity and tenacity. In the shadows of a divided world, she fought not for glory, but for the hope of a future where such battles would no longer be necessary.